By now, you've heard about the Antifa cases. The FBI, the Department of Justice, going after people for protesting ICE facilities and sentencing them to long sentences. There's a lot more to it than just the headlines, so let's talk about it.
A federal judge in Texas handed down 30 to 100-year sentences in what the FBI has called the first Antifa-related domestic terrorism convictions. A group were found guilty in March of material support to terrorists after staging what they described as an anti-ICE noise demonstration. One of the protesters, Benjamin Song, shot at and wounded a police officer who responded to the scene. He was sentenced to the maximum 100 years in prison. But civil liberties experts I spoke with said some of the other convictions blur the line between political activism and domestic terrorism and set a frightening precedent. Because other members of the group, like Autumn Hill and Savannah Batten, had already left the area before the violence began, but were still sentenced to at least 50 years in prison each. A lawyer for Autumn Hill told me,
if you are at a protest and some violence breaks out, you have nothing to do with it. This case says those people out there peacefully protesting absolutely can be prosecuted and convicted.
FBI Director Kash Patel applauded the sentencings, saying acts of violence against our law enforcement partners will not be tolerated, and we continue our work to protect communities across the country from domestic terrorism. I go really deep into this case.
If you move, you will be shot. Do you understand me?
The underlying terrorism law that prosecutors used, and the rollout of presidential memos and legal moves by the administration to target left-wing dissent. You can watch my latest CNN Explains episode on the CNN app.
So, let me start by saying that if you are simply protesting, no, you should not be arrested. You should not be charged. You should not be prosecuted. You should not be convicted. And you should not be incarcerated for doing so. That is not America. You take a shot at a cop that's responding to your protest, yeah, you're going to prison. That's how society works. You don't just get to shoot at people you don't like. We don't do that. And therefore, that's why that guy went to prison. We can have a conversation about the 100 years. We can definitely have a debate about that. We can have a conversation about that. We can even probably agree that was too goddamn long. The two women that left the scene and were still given 50 years, that's insanity. That's a weaponization of the Justice Department. And my hope is that these cases make their way up the ladder, get fast-tracked to the Supreme Court, and we can figure out whether or not we still have a First Amendment right to protest, to peacefully assemble in this country, or if the Department of Justice can just now throw you in prison for the rest of your life for being there. Like I said, I'm not feeling sorry for the guy that went to prison because he shot at a cop. You can't do that. But 50 years for being at a protest? Now we're really into fascist territory here.